Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Well, we are here today to talk about the brand new Flywoo Cinerace 20 with the DJI 03 system. They stuck it into the super tiny, small little Cinerace quad. Now, before I go any further with this review, this is pretty much the same drone as the previous drone I reviewed right here. You see this picture? Go watch that review and you'll learn all about this drone. So then you're asking what's different? Well, let me tell you what is different with this one and why they charge a little bit more, because it's pretty awesome. Check this out. First off, the camera up front is the DJI 03 Air Unit camera. So that means you can record at 4K 60 frames per second. You do not need to put an external camera on this. You have all the hyper smooth capabilities. You can use gyro flow, everything to make everything look cinematic. Not only that, inside the DJI Air Unit, they include a SanDisk 128 gig micro SD card. It's already in there when you buy this, so you don't have to put your own micro SD card in. You'll never fill that up. In addition, on the forward section, they put a GPS rescue unit, so when you're flying, you can see your longitude, latitude. It always points back to where home is, so you can't get lost with this baby. And if you do get lost, you flick a switch on your remote, blink, and you go into GPS rescue, and this comes back to you. For this next one, I have to put a battery on the drone. You can see they put a very bright LED unit in this, so you will never lose this in the sky when it's flying around. Yes, the LED will suck up some of your battery power, and that's why you can configure it on a switch on your remote. See? On, off, on, off. But it does look super cool flying in low light with this thing, so you'd impress a lot of people. They also added a beeper if you lose the drone, so I'll turn the beeper on. There we go. So if it's lost in the grass someplace, I just follow that sound and then I can turn it off. As you can see, I've assigned everything to switches on a remote. You can do that very easy in Betaflight Configurator. The entire unit, even with your battery on it, you can get it under 250 grams, so you're under a lot of regulations, which is pretty sweet. And for receivers, they offer quite a bit. If I look at my chart here, you can just have a normal bind and fly DJI, so use this here DJI remote with it if you get the bind and fly. Or you can, I'm looking at my chart, you can do ELRS like I did, so I'm using an ELRS remote. Or you could do Crossfire. I don't have a Crossfire remote with me at the moment, but you can do that, or you can do FR Sky. Now, before we go any further, I want to talk to you about Flywoo ND filters, because they sent me some with this, and these are awesome. I've never had ND filters for the DJI 03 system, and a lot of times flying on sunny days, I was like, man, I wish I had an ND8 or ND16. Now that I have them, I can put them on any drone I own that has the DJI 03 system. They fit over the camera nicely. So for filters, you get a total of 7. You get an ND4, 8, 16, 32, 64, a polarizer, and a UV filter. And this is what the camera looks like with no ND filter. And if I put one on, then it looks like this here, which looks pretty darn good. And you notice that it also protects your lens. That's why they include a UV filter. It's very clear glass. It's just to block out UV rays. But if you put the UV filter on, then you never have to worry about scratching the DJI 03 lens. Next thing to show you is taking this for a flight. All right, we're going to take the Cinerace 20 for a flight indoors. Plug in our quad. There we go. Now for this indoor flight, I'll put the lights on. There we go, lights are on. I also have a switch here for the beeper, so if I push it down, it will beep if I lose it. That's so I can find it. Take that off, and let's make sure we put it in angle mode, not acro mode. Flight mode horizon. Flight mode angle. There we go. We're all set to go. This is our start button, so let's take it up. Indoor flight. There we go. Let's go around here, bring it up. You know, staring at these lights, they're very bright. Let's bring it over here. It's like almost blinding me. Now you can change the color of the lights, but it's going to take you rewiring it. So I'm not doing that in this video, because I don't mind the bright lights. You can change it to other colors like blue or red or something like that. All right, so indoors you can fly it easy. It's not a big deal, so I will just land it over here in my hand. Boink! I dropped it down there. That's what happens when you try to do it with your opposite hand. Now I just want to show you before I take this for a flight, it's kind of breezy out here, and the last Cinerace 2 I had, the wind did affect it, so it's best to keep it low to the ground. So we'll take it for a flight. I'm just showing you the batteries I brought with me. I've got a 650 and two 750s of different types and different C ratings. And well, with this cold out here, I might have to go through all three to get this flying. But with this amount of power, you milliamp hours, I should be able to get over 5 minutes of flight time. I hope. My hands are really getting cold. And since this version of the Cinerace has the DJI O3 camera in it, I've got to use digital goggles, so I could use the version 2 goggles or the goggles 2, which are these here, made by DJI. And finally, since my version of the Cinerace is ELRS, I need an ELRS transmitter, radio, whatever you want to call it, controller. So I'm using one I haven't used for a long time. This is my Commando 8. It's ELRS. This is version 2 of it, and I kind of like this one, so I'm going to use this for this flight. All right, we're almost set to go. I've got a battery on it, and I do have the Flywoo ND filters. I don't know which one I stuck on. What did I stick on? An ND8, because it is kind of sunny out here. So on a sunny day, use an ND8 or an ND16. If it's clear sky, see, no clouds in the sky, use that, especially with the snow. I should probably have an ND16, but we'll fly it with an ND8. Okay, now when I power this on, I'm going to leave it powered on for a little bit so it gets the satellites. It should get up to 30 satellites. It's not going to get 30 here in my area of Canada, but it has the capability. And if I wanted this light to go on, I just hit this little button here and lights on, lights off, lights on, lights off, but I'll leave it off to save battery power. Okay, it's really cold out. I have to put my gloves on. I don't like flying FPV drones with gloves on because I lose my dexterity. Also, I have hooked up my cell phone to the goggles. This way I can show you what the goggles say, and I can also see if the GPS is working. I see it, it shows longitude and latitude, so GPS is good, we're ready to fly. Okay, so the drone is right over here. Just gotta make sure I don't hit myself in the head. There we go. Let me just check how it feels with the gloves on. I don't like it. I'm gonna take them off. My hands are frozen, so it's going to be a shaky flight, but I won't fly for very long. All right, so it says disarmed on the screen. Hopefully you can see that. Now, I know I've probably already mentioned this. I've flown the previous version, so that's why this won't be a long flight. So now I just hit the arm switch. And let's go way up. Oh, my hands are cold. Oh, the wind. Yeah, the wind pushes me to the side. So I'm flying straight. But look at, I'm just drifting to the side. So that's what you get with the wind with this one. I remember that the wind does affect it a little bit. You can easily fly in the wind as I'm doing here. I'm going directly into the wind, but it does toss you around. In my goggles, it looks like a very smooth flying drone. Like even with the wind just blasting it. Now listen to this. I'm going into the wind. You could just hear it screaming as it tries to power itself through the wind as I get closer to myself. Listen to it. That's because it's like going nuts trying to push itself through the wind. All right, yeah, can't do much there. So now when I go with the wind, watch this. It just goes. It just goes. So you use a lot of battery power for certain. I do have the little display on my screen that shows me where home point is. That's the whole idea of having GPS on an FPV drone, so you can find home easily. You can also use GPS rescue. I do have it set up. If I flew far away, I could put it in GPS rescue, or if it goes out of range, it will go into GPS rescue and then come back to me. Now here's something I'm pretty amazed at this point of the day. This is a park for kids, but in the wintertime, the kids don't really use this. But look at it, all the footprints. Kids have been using this. So I'm surprised at that due to the fact that it's pretty darn cold out. Whoa, that was close. The wind just threw me into that tree. If you get this drone, it's not really designed to fly on super windy days like today. Here, I'll see if I can, come on, wind disappear as I get closer. I'm picking up some speed, so there we can go under it. But I tell you, with the wind, it's just insane. All right, like this is huge to go through. So, oh, look. But the wind might knock you up or down. Get through that, no problem. Come around, go through it again with the wind this time, even faster. There's a tree, go way up. All right, so let's go explore then. Just a little bit of exploring here. Here's our pirate ship for the kids to play on in the summertime. Got some slides, it's a blast. Do whatever you want on that. And over here we have another play structure. It's a lot of fun for the kids too in the summertime. And of course over here is a water park. This is our water park over here. This all fills up with water. It's a splash park and this thing fills up with water and the water falls on the kids. Coming over to my football field. This will be very popular in the summer. Someone's cleared a little path over here. I'm going directly into the wind, so it's a very slow flight forward. But check that out. Somebody cleared a little area here so they can practice either on the soccer net or the football net. I'm not sure. That is really weird. All right, that's kind of different to see. Now I'm going back with the wind. Let's get some speed. Watch this. Fast, 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 fast. Matter of fact, let's try a flip. There we go. That's a roll, sorry. There's a bus. Dive down over it. And let's see if I can do a flip in the wind. That's going to be weird. Here we go. Here's a flip. Whoa! Because the wind is throwing you forward as you're flipping. I never tried to flip into the wind. Let me try a flip into the wind. A forward roll into the wind. So the wind's blowing me backwards. Whoa! That's pretty cool. All right. So now I'm way up here, way out in the wind. If my battery was low or anything like that, there's no way I could get back now. So I'm gonna dive down. This is gonna give me speed. Look at this, I'm going straight down almost. Lots of speed now, straight at the ground. And then I'm gonna pull up at the last second. So Cinerace 2, the previous version, I enjoyed it. And this version here, I love it as well. But I do recall now flying it again that it being so tiny that it is, whoa, and let me turn that off. It being so tiny that, yeah, it's really affected by the wind. So it's right under me, it's right here. So I'll just pick it up, it's right here. Boink! It just landed right below this camera. So it's all fine, the ND filter's on, nothing pops off. That's another thing too, when you put the ND filters on, there's 4 little clips, corners. You push in the bottom one, and then you push in the top one and the side ones, and then it's insecure. It can't come off. But if you don't put it in all the way, it's gonna fly off as you fly. So the battery I was using for that flight is the Flywoo 750 milliamp hour LiPo battery at 80C. It's an 80C rating. So that's the one I was just using out in the freezing cold. All right, unfortunately, it's much too windy and much too cold to keep on flying this out here. I'm just gonna bang into stuff everywhere. It's hard to control in the wind. Like, you can control it, but not as easy as I'd like to, especially in the cold. I just don't have any dexterity in my fingers. So what I'll show you next is some footage of this here flying in darker lighting conditions so you can see the lights. Check this out. All right, so you're back to me. Now you're probably wondering, is there any negatives with this little quad? Well, there's only 2 I can say. The first one, you saw it in the video. It doesn't handle itself very good on super windy, gusty days. It does get blown by the wind because of the way the duct system is working here. You know, propulsion is pushing straight down, but everything's blocked from the side, so the wind hits that and it just pushes your drone from side to side. Easy to compensate if you know how to fly FPV, but if you're trying to do little tricky maneuvers close to the ground, it's going to be affected, so just be aware of that. Second thing that's a negative, at least for me, unless someone has a better solution, when I received this, the first thing you have to do is you have to bind it to your goggles, right? So if you're using the Goggles 2 or the DJI version 2 FPV goggles, because it is digital, you have to bind it. And we all know the way to bind something that's this system is you have to push a little button on the side. You can't access the button. It's in there. It's hidden away. So the only way to access it, at least I could figure out, is there's 2 screws on top. I took this screw off and this screw off, and I just pulled the top right out. Then I could access the button. Then I had to push it back in to screw it back in place. I don't know. It's not really a negative, but I guess that's my little grindy negative. But I will say as a positive, you know that micro SD card that's in there? That's a positive. Yeah, that's pretty expensive, 128 gigs. Well, when you go fly every time and you record, you don't want to pull that out and stick it in your computer, right? So what they give you is this really nice USB-C adapter, and it plugs right into the side. And on the other end is what you plug into your computer, and you just basically transfer all the files, your video files that you recorded, come right off this, and go right into your computer. So I think that's pretty sweet. All right, the next thing I want to show you super quick is binding this to your controller. Now, a lot of times I make videos and I don't show you how to bind the drone to your controller because there's so many different receivers out there, and it's just very boring for most people who know how to do it. As soon as you know how to do it once, why would you watch it again? But I have an awful lot of people that write to me in the ELRS world. They are so confused. They don't know how to bind ELRS, and a lot of people get drones with ELRS, and a lot of people own radios. Some people call them controllers, but they're actually called radios or transmitters with ELRS. So if you have an ELRS system like I have here, this is the iFlight Commando 8. Let me show you the quickest way to bind this to this. First thing you have to know that I'm not going to show you in this video is that this and this have to be on pretty much the same firmware. It's okay if you're not on the exact same firmware, like say this one's on 2.4 and this one's on 2.5, they'll still work. But if this one's on 1.8 and this is on 3.7 firmware or something like that, they're not gonna bind together. So make sure they're on the same firmware. If you don't know which firmware they're on, just try binding it. If they don't bind, the reason it might not bind is because they're on the wrong firmware. Okay, step one, you're gonna have a radio and you have to set up a model in the radio. If you don't know how to do that, watch my millions of videos. Each time I get a new radio, I usually show how to set up a model in it, so go watch one of those. Then you select your model, and if you bought an ELRS radio, in other words, this thing only does ELRS, then you're gonna press the one button to go into ELRS. And if you bought a radio where you had to buy an ELRS module and put it on the back, then you have to go into a different menu. So let me explain this quick. Say this is your module, you stuck it on the back, and this is an ELRS module. In order to get the radio to talk to this module, you have to set up a drone in your radio. Watch one of my many videos. And then when it says, what type of receiver do you have? You select CRSF, and then you go into the menu on the front. You'll have a big button on this side that says System. Yeah, I think it says System. Press the System button, then you'll see a screen that says Tools. Press the Tools button. Now you're at the same point that we are right now with a radio that is fully ELRS. So this radio is fully ELRS because I bought the ELRS version. So I don't have to do all that. I have no module on the back. This is ELRS. So now I press this button on the side right here, this little one that says Menu, and I can see I have some options. I'm not going to show you on the screen, but one of them is Express LRS, and that's what you have to find on any radio you own, and then you select it. Then you slide all the way down to Bind, and you press the Bind button, and then you're binding to this baby. Now, if you do everything I just said, it's not going to work because you have to put this into bind mode, so let me show you how you do that. So 99% of ELRS drones on the market all bind the same way. You can do all sorts of phrasing. You can have a computer, tablet, and go into ELRS configurator, or you can do it the lazy man way, pointing at me. I bind them all the lazy man way. You take a battery, and you're going to plug the battery in 3 times. The first 2 times, you're going to put it in until you hear a sound, and then you're going to pull the battery out. The third time, you're going to leave the battery in. Watch, I'll show you. So watch this. We're going to go 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. Leave it in. This is now in bind mode. It says, all right, bind to me. And you only have about 1 minute to bind. So on this radio, I go and I know, yes. So on this radio, I would go and select Express LRS, which we've already talked about. And then after I select it, you'll see something like this. You won't be able to see here very well on my little screen. It's probably all out of focus, but anyways, I'm into the ELRS system, and it will look like that on any radio you own. And then you just go down to where it says bind. You can adjust the power and everything else. And there we go. I'm on the bind right there. So I'm on bind, and I would just hit a button to tell it to bind, and it would bind from this radio to that. And you're all done, you're bound. All right, the next thing I want to show you is what comes in the box if you buy this baby, so check this out. This is the box the Cinerace comes in, and these are the specifications of the Cinerace drone used in this video. Opening the box, we'll find our drone and accessories. The Cinerace is packaged in shrink-wrap plastic. It is a rather small quad, as you can see here. You can see that the DJI O3 camera is rather large compared to the drone. And this is the DJI video transmission antenna. The mini GPS unit is positioned up front. The ELRS receiver is positioned in the back, and this is the antenna for the ELRS receiver. If you buy 4S batteries for this drone, make sure they have an XT30 connector. The DJI O3 unit is placed just above the flight controller in the center of the drone. You can see here that the Cinerace is mostly constructed of carbon fiber and plastic. 5-bladed props are supplied, and they're positioned on brushless 4850 kV motors. A finder beeper is positioned here, and here we have the circuit board for your LED lights. And speaking of those LED lights, they are massively bright. Total weight of the Cinerace sent to me was 141 grams. Other items in the box included a spare set of props, additional screws, nuts and bolts, a special USB-C plug to transfer data off your DJI O3 system, spare battery strap, battery grips and protective foam, a helpful propeller direction card, a super large battery grip, and of course, Flywoo stickers. Alright guys, thanks for checking out this video. I think it's a really good drone. Like, I have the other version and I do fly the other one, but I fly it on days when it's not gusty. Putting the DJI O3 camera in a little thing like this just makes this phenomenal, and I love that it's got GPS rescue, so that helps a lot. The bright colors make it look pretty cool, and yeah, and the ND filters, I like that too. So with all that said, I'm gonna have links below to this drone. I'll put links below to these filters. Now, if there's a lot of you out there who are like, oh my god, I want to do the same thing Captain Drone does, well, I'll put a link to the iFlight Commando radio. I flew mine on 4S batteries, so you can go on Amazon and buy your own batteries. Just make sure you get an XT30, or you can buy them right off the Flywoo site. So just look around the Flywoo site and you'll find the batteries. And finally, since it is digital, I flew it with the goggles too, so I'll put a link to those below. They're very expensive. DJI stuff's all expensive. Or back there, I've got 2 sets of them. Those are goggles V2. You probably own one of those. So if you have one of those, you're all set to fly this baby. So with all that said, I think I covered everything. I guess that's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll catch you in future videos with more drone reviews. Until then, I say bye.